Hello, all of you beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode. Today, I would really love to start this podcast by just a gentle prayer. So, I'm going to ask you to close down your eyes for just a moment, or if you're driving, just gently listening in, taking a big, womb, deep breath, holding for just a moment and letting out and letting go of any judgment, shame, and any feelings of not being enough. But you are enough. This podcast may ignite a fire within your room, and I ask you to blow on the embers and allow it to take flight, if so. Allow it to burn brighter, answer the call, and follow your own guidance. Welcome, sister. Today, my beautiful sister and I are going to be leaning and speaking into some really vulnerable topics, some topics of things that are happening in the world still today regarding patriarchal colonism and all of the feminine BS that's still happening. We're also going to touch on some shadow work, womb healing, and what it really is like to step into your power by first going into your darkness, which is really the only way to heal and to truly wake up in this life or another, right? So, Mon, I would really love to start with your beautiful sacred darkness experience that you had, that you shared from this morning, actually, and what that was like for you. And then I would really love to just pick apart your body, your womb, and just kind of really understand how you got to that place of being able to dance in your darkness and dance with your rage, which is seen as not okay for women.
Yeah, I feel that. For such a long time, I always made sure I appeared okay. Like I always made sure I looked happy. I always made sure like I always said I was good, I was fine, like all of these things. And for most of my life, I thought that the goal was to be love and light. I didn't know that the experience of a woman, the purpose was to be broken over and over and over and over again in a lifetime. So every time I broke, I thought I was broken, like genuinely broken, like something was wrong with me. I thought, why was I experiencing so much darkness in my life? Why was I encountering troubles and challenges all the time? Why did I not feel okay all the time? And something I've really embodied and now understand is just like the cycles of the earth and like our heartbeat and like the moon and the seasons, we cycle in emotions. The goal never should be to be love and light. They want us to believe that we should be striving for love and light because then we feel like we're broken. Then we come into self doubt and self hatred and self pity every time we feel like we're not okay. And so this morning, in knowing that me and Dani were going to record this podcast and some of the stories and the things that we're going to share, I was feeling so much rage in my body. I could feel so much heat and fire in my womb space and like a blockage in my throat. And as I was connecting to this in my meditation this morning, I was just so angry. I was so angry. And I know for myself personally to move and embody an emotion in my body, such as rage, it is better for me to move physically through dance, right? When it comes to rage, it's not something that I can sit with and allow and speak to and transmute. For me, with rage, it needs movement, like physical movement.
I'm the same. I'm the same. And I feel like rage is such an explosive
Mhm.
emotion, right? It's an explosive energy that really needs to be moved in some
Mhm.
way to be able to let that go, right?
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful, powerful emotion. And so what I did was I have a playlist that's called Sacred Rage that I've made. That is just like a list of songs that I absolutely love that when I put on, I'm like, let's go, like, let's go off. Like, I'm ready to like smash shit, roll around on the floor, like punch my pillow, scream and yell. Like, I'm ready to let my rage out when I hear these songs. And so that is exactly what I did this morning. And it's quite cute because my partner knows I do all this stuff. So, and we have a two-storied house, and my altar that I sit at and dance at and do all my sacred practices at is upstairs. So I literally said to my partner this morning, I think it was like 6:30 a.m. I was like, babe, I'm going to stomp. Like you're going to hear me upstairs. And it's so beautiful because it's so normal in our house now.
Yeah. Stampede coming through.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, just don't come in. Like, I'm okay. Like, let me be in it. Which is an interesting piece as well because I am yet to be witnessed in my rage. It's something that I really want to step into. Um, but anyway, so I just allowed this emotion to, as I was dancing to these songs and like rolling around on the floor and like pushing against the walls and punching my pillows, I was really allowing the emotion of rage to flow through my body and be felt. I was embodying it. I was rage. And as I became that rage and I just went through it, like initially, like you start to feel the rage and then it becomes heightened and you're freaking going at it. And then the rage starts to soften. And then I always like to end like my practices with rage with like a sensual song at the end to come back into pleasure and come back into my body. And it was just such a beautiful piece that after I did that practice, I felt so regulated and calm in my nervous system. And I still felt like I was angry about certain things, but I was no longer the anger and the rage. It was like it's transmuted. And I felt so I could feel joy and pleasure coming back, which wasn't there before. And so it's through knowing that the darkness is there, the dark emotions, the heavy emotions, they're always going to come. And it's knowing what you need, like what resources and tools you need to allow you to be with and have those emotions without making yourself bad or wrong or reverting to coping mechanisms or punishing yourself or doing the self-hatred thing and the victim thing that for such a long time I personally did because I felt like they were so wrong.
Me too.
Yeah, and I feel like such a huge piece here is like as women we are meant to be or we're painted to be these beautiful and pretty and happy and loving creatures, which we are all of that. But when you think of women, do you ever think of darkness and rage and anger and suffering and pain and disgust? Because we are all of that as well.
But we've been conditioned to believe by patriarchy, right? Patriarchal
Mhm.
bullshit that, that is wrong or that is dark, that is
Mhm.
evil, that's a witch, that's nastiness. You don't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you do, like, you have a moment where you are angry at someone, you're like, oh no, I need to go and apologize. Even though I was angry and I was speaking my truth, I'm going to go back and apologize because I've been taught that that is bad and wrong, that I shouldn't be angry. And so instead of expressing our emotions and feeling our emotions, which is feminine, being in our feminine energy, we are so heavily in our masculine that we suppress our emotions, right? We suppress them, we don't feel them. And when we don't feel them, we actually pass them on to our children to deal with and our children's children. And we make it harder and harder and heavier and heavier. And the ancestral line is filled with so much trauma in our bodies that in this lifetime, I know what I'm feeling is not only mine. There's a lot of lines in my lineage that haven't felt this. And I'm sure that you can probably resonate with that too, Danny.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that because I feel that within this lifetime of mine, I am the healer of my ancestors and my own, my own traumas as well from this lifetime also. But I actually had a realization this morning, Mon, that was, really substantial for me. So, I share and I speak vulnerably and openly about, child sexual assault that I experienced. And there was this one incident that happened over a course of months when I was about 7. And due to going to court at a young age, I didn't actually tell anyone about this. So I didn't tell anyone about it until I was like well into my late teens, early 20s. And there was like this fire that was within me that came forth out of nowhere and that just decided to do something about it. And I was like, he needs to pay. And within my body, I felt this burning desire to get closure and what I thought was closure back then, right? He's got to pay, all that, ego driven, which is too right, like I'd been hurt and it was wrongly traumatized. However, it wasn't actually my truth. And this morning, I took to this realization that that actually didn't come from wanting to get closure as per se. It came from me stepping into my feminine power, my dark feminine, and rising above and making a stand and sharing my voice. Like I was told by not so many, but I was told by a few around me and those in my family that I did have contact with that, oh, he's an old man now. He's 76. He's probably just going to get away with it anyway. You're really going to put yourself through all of that pain of remembrance and trauma and, to come forth and go through court. This is a long process. But for me, it wasn't about that, and I didn't even know that until this morning, and I went, "Wow, I've actually been going against the grain my whole life, this life." And I know, Mon, that I have in many lives before as well. Like just this morning, I felt the fire and the burn on my skin that I'd felt from past lives being burnt for sharing my voice. Yeah, I know so many other women have felt and heard and themselves in whatever way that looks like. But to be able to stand up and rise up and go, enough is enough. I don't want this for my life. I don't want this for my children. And it's time for me to step in and heal my ancestral trauma of all
Mm.
of the women that have gone before me, the men that stood by the women, and to take that down. Mm.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And it's so important to note, like, I'm so proud of you for using your voice and at such a young age and without knowing, but now knowing that that was you stepping into your power. And I think so often that these moments where we are like using our voice, or we're saying no, or we're encountering a challenge, whatever the darkness may be, the darkness is happening for us, for without it, we will never encounter our power. We will never rise to our truth. We'll never feel the expansion of what we really are. And so I know that that encounter where you did speak your truth and you did say, like, no, I'm going to actually say what happened and I'm going to hold you accountable to what happened. That was not an enjoyable experience for you. That was really tough. But what came from that was your ability to share your voice and reclaim some of your power. And I always know and trust that whatever darkness we are going through, because we are all going through it in some way or another through different phases, on the other side of darkness is always light. But you'll only see the light if you stop playing the victim. Right? And you start to actually, like in my life now, I have a knowing it's coming all the time. I always know the darkness is coming. And I said this to you a few weeks ago, Dani, like, because I was feeling a lot of heaviness. And I said to Dani, I'm feeling it all. And I have a bit of a smirk internally that I'm like, yeah, I can hold you now. I can feel you now. And I knew you were coming, and here you are. And I'm going to find the beauty in you
And
rather than running.
what a beautiful piece, what a beautiful place to get to be able to go, yeah, okay, the darkness is coming, all right, and now I'm going to stand in my power and I'm going to triumph through it rather than run away from it, because running away from it, it does what? Cycles the exact same.
Yeah.
Get the
And
same
I,
steps.
and I know now that that's where like my depression came from when I was younger, is from running from my darkness and not feeling and embodying my emotions. Right? I was so depressed and I was so disconnected because I was doing what I'd been taught to do, which was appear happy all the time and like I'm okay all the time. But inside, I was like numb and dying because I had no idea how to feel my emotions. I had no idea that it was okay to go up to my mum and be like, Mum, I'm actually really not okay. I don't even want to live anymore. Like that, like saying that to my mum, there is no way little Simone would have done that. That was unthinkable. That wasn't even an option for help.
And why do you think that is, that you felt that, Mom?
Mm. I feel like me personally, in the environment that I was raised in, which I am so, so grateful for, we did not share heavy emotions, right? Unless we were crying and something happened, like you fell off your bike or something like that. But the depth of like real heaviness, we didn't speak into it. And because we didn't speak into it, I didn't know how to have the words to explain what it was I was feeling. So I couldn't even tell you. Which is a big piece, and a piece that I'm so grateful for, because if I had known, my life would be completely different. And I don't want my life to have been different, because every darkness that I've encountered and every challenge that I've encountered has allowed me to embody more and more and more of my power along the way. Like every darkness, I find myself more and more and more. And so I'm so grateful for all that has happened to me. And I see the beauty in all of it. And I see how it is all mine. No one else contributed to my darkness. It's mine. Right? It's no one's fault. It's no one's fault. It all happened for me. And it's taken a lot to get to the point where I take it and I own it and I see it as mine and I claim it and I see the beauty in it and I can talk about it. Right? I was even having a conversation with a friend yesterday, and she had an encounter, like an experience maybe about 5 years ago, that she was holding a lot of shame around, and it was a sexual encounter with someone. And she was talking to me openly about it for the first time. And like every now and again we speak into it a little bit and then she'll withdraw or she won't share all of it. But she shared the whole lot with me. And I could see that shame and self-hatred and being a victim had gone for her now. Those emotions weren't present. Those parts weren't present around that experience. And it just shows that she has transmuted and moved through the emotion in her body that she was holding of that experience.
And she's now become in alignment and in resonance with who she wants to be. Therefore,
Mhm.
that experience and those emotions don't actually mean the same thing to her anymore. I really feel that on a deep level. How beautiful that she was able to get to that point.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And I really feel that although and this is a piece that I'm moving into now, it's so beautiful to be able to sit with yourself and be like, I'm feeling sadness, I'm feeling anger. Where am I feeling it in my body? What's coming up? And just allowing it in your body and letting all the energy flow deliciously. That is beautiful. And I feel like the next step is being in that emotion with people and transmuting it with people in community. So, like being in sacred rage with a group of women. Like, I really want to do that. Or like being in sadness, being in your sensual energy, like doing that in communities, because that will allow for greater transmutation and greater depth of feeling.
That's really powerful. We've touched on that in one of my journeys, Awakening the Wild Woman Within, right? An
Hmm.
online space. And we've touched into those pieces, moving through that sacred rage and moving through that sensual energy. And wasn't it powerful?
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness.
Like
That was,
that's not normal. That was it is normal and it was normal, right? But that
yeah.
is not these days normal. And that again, that's due to patriarchal conditioning. Don't get too powerful, because that's wrong. She's a witch. It's like tear her down, burn her down.
Yeah, that was and that call we did where we were all like feeling into our power and our energy of our bodies, and we were all like in lingerie, or me and Danny were naked, and we were like dancing and getting into our sensual energy, but also like feeling whatever came up. And I remember on this call, and this is something I definitely feel resistance in speaking into, but I'm gonna lean into it anyway. But on that call, I remember I remember that as we were all dancing, so me and Danny were naked on this call, and there were about another 4 or 5 other women that were all in lingerie. And we were dancing like sensually and touching our bodies. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lie down and I'm actually gonna pleasure myself right now. Anyway, and as I was pleasuring myself, like I had this moment where I was just watching all the women on the call, like dancing, these women all dancing. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're so hot. Like they are so beautiful. And their turn on was turning me on more. And I could feel the power in it. It was so powerful. But as I was feeling the power, my logical mind was coming in and being like, Simone, oh my gosh, like you have a boyfriend. What the fuck are you doing? And I was like, no, I'm allowed. Like, I'm just coming into my sensual pleasure. And I could feel this battle between all my conditioning and all the societal like systems and shit that we have been taught about what is right and wrong around our pleasure in our bodies. I could feel it all coming up and I could sit with it and just allow it to be there and then like come back to pleasuring myself. And it was one of the most profound experiences. It unlocked something in me and in my pleasure and my sensuality with myself where I was like, I can experience pleasure in unbelievable ways and in communities of women. And it can be really safe and it can be right and it can be okay and it can be perfect. And it can be on a whole nother level than I ever knew it was like what was available to me. But previously that, like Simone, like the way I've been brought up and like the patriarchy and what we have been conditioned to believe, that would have been so wrong. But the power it unlocked.
But even sex in general for women is seen as wrong. It's like
Yeah.
women just have sex to make babies and that's it. In some communities still, some cultures still, women are slaves
Yeah.
to their husbands, and if anything happens to their husbands, then they're still seen as the blame. It was their fault. So then they're hung, or they're whatever, dismantled in some way. Like the statistics show. I'm reading this book called Burning Woman. I highly recommend it. It unlocked something within me, and even reading it got me to tears, to a point where I was like howling one night. I think it was chapter 2, The Burning Woman, talking about the statistics that show with what's happening around the world today, that are quite extreme. Like I think it's in India, from statistics back from 2015, that 2 women a year are still getting burnt alive than being claimed as being witches. 2015. Like, that's 9 years ago. This is still happening.
Yeah.
And for what cause? Who knows? Like, I know, going back to that specific call for me, Mon,
Mhm.
I remember in my body feeling this uncertain feeling of, this is wrong, but it feels so right. No, it's so natural. I was like, what is that feeling? And really wanting to lean into that, and really wanting to lean into that more, and
Mm.
allowing the magic to unfold. But the same thing was for me. It unlocked something
Mm.
for me and all of the other girls, and the next lot of girls that go through the next journey as well. Like, it's this conditioning that we're slowly deveiling. And by deveiling, it doesn't need to be something like that. It could just be something as big as sharing your voice in an
Mm.
open space of women, showing up online with a group of women and taking yourself off mute for the very first time. Like, that's scary. But
Yeah.
again, a lot of that is not actually the fear of judgment. A lot of that is the patriarchy conditioning. It's like, don't get too loud, because if you
Mhm.
get too loud, you'll be seen as powerful. And you know what happens to women that are powerful: you get burnt, you
Yeah.
drown, and you get killed.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the piece, right? Because when we think of those, and I just wanna, like, pay tribute to those lives that were taken, because when we think of witch, that's just a woman in her power, in deep connection with her body. And so everything that we share on this call today is about how you can connect with your power. And in doing so, you will become a witch. But what do you feel in your body when you hear that word witch? Or what image comes to mind? I can remember, like, Hansel and Gretel, and, like, the witch was so evil. And that's just patriarchal conditioning. Right? And I see so many women now, like, it has become so normalized for women to live in, like, a set point. Like, your set point in your body right now for so many women is like one of stress and self-doubt and self-hatred, or one of where you're comparing yourself all the time and you, like, never ever measure up. And I feel like as women, we have, through movies and conditioning and the media and all of these things, we have been taught that to be a desirable woman, we need to look a certain way. We need to be a certain size. We need to speak a certain way. We need to perform in bed a certain way. We need to carry ourselves a certain way. Like, the list goes on. And when I see women today, I see so many women who have been stripped of, but are so hungry for pleasure. They've been stripped of their pleasure and they don't even know it. Yet I can see their hunger for it. And I think it's so important to, like, when we think of pleasure, our house of pleasure is our pussy. right? And the same with the word witch. When you think of the word pussy and when you say the word pussy, what do you think of? How does it feel? Like pussy. For most women, pussies are like disgusting and terrifying. They're these things that are desired and you don't want everyone to fucking desire you because it's scary. Or they're messy. Or we're taught that they smell and they bleed and they apparently need grooming, or like you have a baby out of them, like all of these things that the pussy is painted to be.
It's interesting that you say that, sis, because it's like, for me, it took such a long time before I even looked at my own pussy in the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you know what's this is kind of funny, but also like, I love it, is every morning I say good morning to my pussy.
I love that. I
Every
love
morning
that.
I look at it. Every morning. Because what we have not been told and what I now know is that our pussy is our portal to pleasure. And pleasure is our portal to the divine, and the divine is our power. So the very thing that we have been taught is disgusting and to hide and to judge is our portal to the magic and the joy and the pleasure and the freedom that we actually crave. Right? And it's through leading with our pussies that we're able to like connect with the goddess within. And for example, like I didn't even know the anatomy of my pussy. I never ever knew the anatomy of something that houses my power. And like, if we are not made for pleasure, then why do we have a clitoris that has 8,000 nerve endings on it and its only function is pleasure? Right. And the clitoris, which is at like the top of your vulva, and I'm just going to get into like sex ed.
Yes,
But
please.
the clitoris, which is at the top of your vulva, most women, their clitoris is too far from their like entrance where they have penetration that they cannot climax through like penetration, like normal sex. And so we have been brought up and conditioned that sex is like this thing that we should have with your partner. And you're like, how many times a week are you having sex? Okay, your relationship's so healthy because you're having sex 3 times a week, whatever it is. But it's like, wait, I'm not coming at all. What about the woman? What if you're not having sex at all and you're just having like orgasms all the time because you're touching each other? Like the woman is getting pleasure. And so that's another piece is like relationships are looked at as how often are you having sex indicates how healthy the relationship is. And it's also like your pussy is looked at as something that is not praised and not given attention to and not loved. And I read this quote and it was like, a woman is taught to care for others before she is taught to come. A man, yeah, I know, I laughed and it was like, a man is taught to come before he is taught to care for others.
Mm,
And I was like, interesting,
mm.
right? But we compromise ourselves. And a lot of the time we think of like self pleasure and sex, like there's so much shame and there's so much judgment around it.
The
And like,
amount of women that I've worked with that
mhm,
have told me that they've never self-pleasured is huge.
yeah,
It's huge. And I
yeah,
don't look at that with judgment. I look at that with so much like, wow, sister, you haven't even been taught,
yeah,
right, how to step into your power. Because what does that give? That gives all the power to the masculine man. The man is in control of my power. The
yeah,
man makes me come. The man makes me orgasm. The man connects me to the directly to source, to God, to the divine, whatever you want to call it, right? It's all the same thing. But it's like hand that job over to the masculine, hand that job over to the man. Not only does that give away your power to the man, but it makes the man have so much control,
hmm,
so much pressure that he's got to perform a certain way,
yeah.
right? That he's got to give his woman all of that pleasure and that power.
Yeah, and with that, I think there's this like it's almost like 'cause for so long I was like he should just know, right? But really we should explore our bodies and then teach the man, and then he shall know. Because it's not like when guys grow up, their mum's like, "Oh, here you go. Here's how to please a woman." That doesn't happen, right? And most women are too scared to use their voice, and they're scared to like lose love or receive judgment, that they don't speak up about how like and what they desire in bed. And then you don't even explore because around masturbation, it's so judged and so shamed. Like, I can remember for most of my life, when I masturbated after a climax, I would feel shame and I would feel judgment because I had been brought up to believe that that was bad and wrong, that pleasuring myself and reaching climax was bad and wrong, that touching my body, that is my body, is bad and wrong. And feeling pleasure in my body, feeling fucking good as I orgasm is bad and wrong. And so if you haven't touched yourself or ever climax, that's okay. We're all on our own journeys and everyone is so uniquely different. And it's just like, if you're feeling curious and you're like, this has evoked something in me, maybe it's just asking yourself, like, what the fear is there? And leaning into that and just seeing what it is. And it's knowing that as you explore your sensuality, even if you start touching yourself, all those emotions are going to come up. You're going to feel the resistance.
The darkness will come.
The darkness will come.
A really
Every
beautiful, yeah, a really beautiful way to, for anyone listening, that may be feeling like, wow, this has really evoked something in me, or feeling the complete opposite, feeling I'm feeling really triggered by this.
Mhm.
Just coming back to sense, to self, and allowing yourself to just gently touch your body in a way that feels good, even if that just starts with your hands. Just very softly touch your hands, like very sensually touch your hands, your face, your chest, your arms, right? And just start to get familiar with that sensual touch, like that you would touch someone that you ultimately loved, right? Touching yourself in the same way is a really beautiful, beautiful way to start.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. And something that was so present for me when I started to do practices like that, Danny, and this is so honest, is because I had been so heavily in my masculine for so much of my life, where I was like hustling and grinding and making like focused on like success and money and all of these 3D things. When it came to learning pleasure and touching my body, the hardest thing for me was to do it slowly. Because everything I was doing in my life was so busy and so rushed and so like in goal, in goal, in goal. Let's go, let's go, let's go. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to touch myself to climax, right? And so when I was leaning into my sensuality and really starting to learn about pleasure, the slowness and the seeing so much worth in myself that I was allowed the time with myself to slow down, honestly, was so hard for me. I would have to say things to myself, and I had mantras that I was saying to be like, I'm worthy of this time. You're safe to slow down. Because I feel as women, we are in today's society, we are so busy. And so I can imagine for a lot of women as they slow down and if they're curious to lean into their pleasure, I trust that that piece will come up as well. And just knowing that it's perfect and it's not bad and wrong, and it's like awkwardness and discomfort is just part of learning more and exploring yourself and awakening more of your power. It's like expecting that.
It's such a powerful piece to speak into, Mon. I feel the exact same when I started self pleasure, and even just slowing down, like the awkwardness and the quickness. Like, right, I've got 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I've got to quickly orgasm, reach for the vibrator, climax,
Mhm.
climax, climax. Whereas taking the time to sit down and watch myself in the mirror and just use my hands. So touching my body may not be my pussy, right? May not be for an orgasm. It's just to slow down and feel that. it took a lot for me to be able to be okay with that and just feel and lean into that. But once I started to do that, oh my gosh, it started to unlock these powerful explosions within me that weren't even orgasmic, right? They were out of this world, like completely profound experiences. Like I remember just really quickly, I remember on my I had this mushroom journey, right? And I had this really challenging experience. It was so dark and it was so much grief and pain and suffering. And I've come out of the deep part of the medicine and I was like, oh, just feeling so energetically drained, but I was feeling so sexual. And I just remember like looking at this rose and I was like just touching the outside of the rose, which ultimately like looked like a pussy, right? It looked like the vulva and the vagina and the hole. And I was like, wow. And it started to unlock something within me. And I self-pleasured and self-pleasured in a way that I'd never touched my body before. And it was explosive. Like it was incredible. And what had happened was I'd transmuted all of that grief and that sorrow and that suffering and that pain from all of my experience of deep in the medicine, what the medicine wanted to teach me and show me, right? Which was self-judgment, shame, criticism, and all of these emotions and feelings that I'd been holding on to for years and years and years about many different reasons. But transmuting that out of my body through sexual pleasure was a completely different experience, and that completely unlocked something and evoked something within me. And I've known, like, since then, the self pleasure has been a beautiful journey of exploration and, yeah, just really getting to know myself, what feels good, what aligns with me, what actually doesn't feel good, and what I don't actually like, Like, I used to say things like, "Oh, yeah, I love it rough and just throw me around." And it's like, well, that can be a bit of fun sometimes, but I actually fucking don't like that. I get no pleasure at all from that. Like, the only pleasure I really get is like pleasuring a partner. Like, when I have a partner, it's like I pleasure my partner, but there's like, for me, it's like gone, completely gone. So for some women, it's like, yeah, I love that, but it's like really coming back to sense self and going, does that feel good for me? No, then why am I doing it?
Yeah, and that's that piece of perform, right? We're rarely taught to perform for the masculine, for the man in the bedroom,
Yeah.
cannot be in our bodies and in our truth.
Mm.
And I think that it's so important to, like, for all women to be connected to their pussy and to their pleasure, because if you're not connected to your pleasure, you will think that your life revolves around your job and your family and your husband and your kids, and you will feel numb inside. Like, your life force energy will become smaller and smaller, and you will feel so disconnected within yourself with yourself. And pleasure allows you to connect with your desires, and your desires guide you towards your power. And so this piece of pleasure, and it doesn't have to be touching yourself, as Danny said, like in terms of orgasm, it can just be sensual and touching your skin. There's so much power in that. And I know that using like having different items that I use, like sometimes I'll have like a little bowl of cold water and I'll like put that over my skin with my fingertips, or I'll suck on a piece of chocolate as I touch my skin, or I'll put oil on my skin. I do different things all the time just to make it more exciting and explorative, and to connect with myself, because the way I see myself now as a woman so deeply worthy of it all and who has so much power that she must be honored and treated like the goddess that she is. But that's only because I felt my power, and I feel my pleasure every single day. I connect to pleasure and I live in pleasure, and I'm playful and I dance and I do all of these things that for honestly like a decade of my life I stopped doing. because I was so heavily in that masculine and I thought I had to hustle to thrive. Mm.
For whatever reason, we've been taught as women that pleasure is not acceptable and it's not okay, whether that be from parents or whether that be from, in my case, sexual assaults, and then it having this pull and this pain, whether that be ancestral, that there's this power that's been taken away from us women as getting into our sexuality and our sensuality for the reason that we become too much and that we become too powerful. Dating back thousands of years ago, women were, we were worshipped as gods, just as gods, and men were worshipped as gods as well. But somewhere along the lines, women became too powerful, was seen as too powerful, seen as a threat. So then, all of these patriarchal conditioning has just been one by one again, like we said in, I think it was our last podcast, tearing each other down. But what's the best way to bring women down? It's tearing ourselves down, and having that comparison and that judgment piece, which is it's just so prominent in today's society. In saying that, though, like, today's society is a really beautiful time to be alive because we get to share our voice and we get to step back into our pleasure, our sensuality, heal those sisterhood wounds, and little by little, we get to heal moving forward and healing those ancestral wounds, which I truly believe, in another, I was saying, we were speaking about this a couple of days ago, Mon, about, I don't know, maybe 200, 300 years. So from now, things are going to be so different. And it's just going to be really beautiful to see the rise of the feminine consciousness with the masculine, the integrated
Mhm.
feminine and the integrated masculine, and allow the light and the dark to be as it is and be okay as it is, rather than the darkness be seen as the bad and the light being seen as the good, which, it is still very prominent in, yeah, today's society.
Yeah, I feel that. And it's also it's so beautiful to look at because the piece on women where a lot of like the judgment that I receive is from other women and a lot of the tearing down is woman to woman, right? And when I really think about it, my ability to heal to where I've got to today is because of other women.
Yeah,
The only way I fucking healed to the point that I've gotten to today is through other women.
yeah,
And the only way I actually understand my desires is through witnessing other women that are in their power and being like, oh, I want that. That's a desire in me. Her ability to wake herself up and be in her power has awoken something in me that I desire to be more in my power because I see hers. And I feel like it's such this beautiful piece of instead of judgment now, I look at women as this portal to my power because they are. They are the only ones that can lead the way for me.
it's the awakening.
Yeah. And so when I see women that are struggling and that are tearing others down, I see so much and I feel so much sadness and suffering. And it hurts. Like it really hurts to feel it because that's all I knew for such a long time.
It's a
And
remembering. Hey, you feel that?
yeah,
I know that pain.
yeah. And I think there's this part of me that knows we must go through that phase to come out and to come into the deep connection and love that we now have with women. But it's also just a piece of knowing that if you are judging others, that's okay too. And that if you are playing victim to your circumstances, that's okay too. There's nothing that you're doing right now in your life that is terrible and bad and wrong. Like everything is unfolding exactly as it's meant to, and just trusting that. And because I never want to paint judgment as a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not at
Mm,
all. It's
mm.
okay. But just knowing that there is other possibilities out there. Mm. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, that's such a powerful, powerful piece.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel like we could honestly, we could do so many episodes on this same sort of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like just yeah, there's so
And we
much
most
here.
likely will,
Yeah, there's so
right?
much here. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Well, I would love to end today's podcast with a poem I um that I wrote a few days ago. I had this fire within my womb space, this burning desire to share, and I would really love to end it with this. So I invite you to either watch the YouTube or listen in with your eyes closed, your eyes open, feel whatever feels right for you. Burning woman, they stripped us bare, stole our magic, turned us against one another, turned us against ourselves. Comparison, judgment, and trauma run through our veins from our ancestors, ancestors. But we say enough. We take back our power, ignite our magic once again, remember our roots, come back home. We heal the feminine wound, the feminine consciousness come together and gather in circle, naked and shake our bare breasts. They told us no, but we say yes. We reclaim our bodies, our mind, womb, and sex. We say enough. We stand for our sisters and our brothers who stood by us. We heal our sister wounds. We heal ourselves. We heal for our ancestors who were burnt and drowned. You felt it, sister. You've smelt the smoke, felt the burn on your skin, remembered through your dreams. You felt it in your bones. We say enough. For generations, we've been scared, scared to share our voice, step back into our power, be seen as too much. But the time is now. We stand together, rise together. No more will we accept less than. No more will we hide our bodies in shame. No more will we bow down for them. For we are the burning woman.
Whoa! Wow. Thank you. That was such a beautiful way to close this space.
Mm. As always, if you liked this podcast, our beautiful sisters and brothers that are watching as well, then please like and share, tag us. The more that we can get behind, the more that we can ignite. We love you. Mwah.
Love you. Bye.